A. So this is going to be my talk through of Game 2 at the Spanish Championships. And at that point, I had won my first game. I was in the top half, I knew. And I got matched up against Miguel. And Miguel had brought a French army. So that was always going to be, I was like, okay, he's probably going to have a lot of howitzers and stuff. So I want a table that's really like cluttered with line of sight blockers so that I can hide a bit. And I got the table that had nowhere to hide at all. Not a single place. So that sucked. But let me show you what it did. By the way, if you want to see the plan for how to win this, then go and watch. In the description, I have a link for the video yesterday where I planned all this out. So, Game 2 of the Spanish Championships. I was playing Clence, and he had a 20 order dice French list, double howitzer, medium, a howitzer tank, because of course, a Lafley that had like 10 or something machine gun shots. He had an inexperienced horde, so he had like 4 units of inexperienced guys. He had a unit of Senegalese as well, so tough fighters and stuff. And he had a unit of engineers in a Berylay. Now, I was, of course, bringing my Brits, Up and Adam, 5 Gurkhas, Stuart, LBT, 3 earlier motorcycles, land mattress, medium mortar, and flamer jeep. 16 order dice. So I was down on order dice, but I knew that his order dice had to be a little weaker than mine. So turning this into a kill point game could be in my favor. Now, this was the board that we got, and you can possibly see that there's a lot of cover here. We decided that these tombstones here were all hard cover and rough ground, by the way. So there's a lot of cover, but there is nowhere on this board you can hide. Everything is visible. You could stand behind one of these hills, maybe potentially with 1 unit of infantry, and not be seen. But if someone puts a howitzer on a hill, then you can be seen. So everything was visible, everything could be shot at, and I was not pleased with the table at all. I have to say that. Whoever set this up, you really screwed me over. But there was a lot of cover, so I knew I was going to get hard cover all the time, which, yeah, I could work with that, I felt like. So in Cleanse, you have to have sectors deployment. We roll off. I get to choose, but all the sectors are pretty much alike. So I choose the blue sector here. We had the secondary objective where the black dot is. The secondary objective, of course, was worth 10 kill points after the game, not during, like, when you calculate who's winning. And then you have 4 objectives, the yellow dots in the center of each of the sectors. So, yeah, the plan was always going to be to try and contest objectives and then play kill points. Especially because I had hard cover everywhere. I knew I wasn't going to be able to like push all my army into some place. So basically I deployed most of my army behind these tombstones here, ready to flow into this center here, so that I could have most of my army sitting right here. Why? Because that would give me access to these 2 objectives and to taking the central one. And if I could just stay ahead on kill points, I would win. The trouble was to stay alive in the barrage of having 4 sets of HE coming at me. Now, I was pretty fortunate in that Miguel chose to reserve his Lafley and his howitzer tank. I was very happy about that. I think it was a mistake because it meant that he had only 3 sources of HE sitting in the board at the start, which was nice. So, did I stick to the plan? Yes, absolutely. Except for one thing. When we get to turn 3, so like the early turns, right? I deploy everything. I have a concentration of force down behind the hill. That's That's just a couple of small units like my artillery observer and stuff, which needed to survive. So they stay behind here so I don't get sniped. And then the LVT also stays down here to cover this flank, because I knew that he was going to bring in his tanks down here, which he does. So I needed my Polson gun to stick there and shoot. And these, like my lieutenant and my artillery observer, they could all run up and take this objective. So that was a concentration that I needed down here, where I could sort of be safe. The rest of the army deploys here, and I sort of push them up into this area here. I do that because his army is all deployed here, most of it in rough ground, so that he can't really move. He is locked down, and he also places his infantry in front of his guns, so there will be no direct fire. I know then that he is always going to be hitting on sixes, and like that's all you can do. Basically, he just reduced his 2 howitzers and medium mortar to my 1 land mattress. These are now equally worth the 2 medium howitzers and his mortar and my land mattress. Because my land mattress, because he's stuck so close together, I can definitely get 3 units per shot, right? And I'm hitting on 6s. He's hitting 1 unit on 6s with each of his sources of HE. So he has reduced his HE to basically not be worth anything. Like 35 points for a land mattress, whatever, 50 points. So I was very happy about that. Now, I knew that if I needed, and he knew, I could see on him and his deployment here, he was not going to give me easy kills if he could avoid it, right? He knows that Gurkhas can charge him and kill him. He doesn't want that. So I had to push up here. I had to push up, and I pushed a little further than my original intent. My original intent was to stay back here, but I push a little further up. And at that point, I start charging. I start taking out inexperienced units. And I pushed my Stuart along with the Gurkhas so that I could get some units to go down by shooting at them, and some units to stay up, shoot at my Gurkhas, and then I could charge them. So that started happening. He counters by pushing in his Berylay, and at that point I had made a slight mistake, I think. My 1 unit of Gurkhas was a little beyond halfway here, so he could actually have moved 12 inches, got out 6 inches, and shot me. He could have done that. He didn't do it. Which meant that his Berylay moves out here, which meant that I get a shot on it, I kill it, and the engineers jump out and are pinned and don't do anything. They end up here on the edge of his zone, and I think I ended up charging them at one point, just killing them in close combat. On the other flank, I also have a unit of Gurkhas. They are going to move up to take this objective here. Unfortunately, and he did this well, he pushes 1 unit of inexperienced dudes up here and 1 of his early war motorcycles. Now, this unit of inexperienced, they get to the hill before I do, and they immediately go on ambush. So he's got 12 guys on ambush, and I sit there, and at that point, my Gurkha unit has already lost a couple of guys. So I'm down to 5 men. I didn't want to charge into that ambush. When I finally do so, I lose again 1 guy, and the Gurkhas fail the charge and die. So I actually had to divert at one point 1 unit of Gurkhas to go up here, kill the inexperienced, and then jump onto objective. But by that point, I was already running through him. I absolutely decimated this front line of infantry. He ended up having 2 very depleted units sitting down here. The rest is dead. The howitzer down here, this is one of his howitzers. The other one is here. This howitzer got multi-launched, died. There you go. I did roll a couple of lucky 6s, but since he was rolling 6s, I was rolling 6s. We rolled like an equal amount of dice. They will crop up. So that died. The other howitzer, I had been shooting at it every single turn with a couple of my machine guns from the Stuart, just to give it a few pins and make sure that he's wasted turns, which he did. Which again meant that my multi-launcher was way more effective than his artillery, right? because I had a lot of targets to shoot at. He had clumped up in the center here, really clumped up. So I had a lot of targets to shoot at. At one point, I even started shifting those because there wasn't enough targets over here. I started shifting to his reserves who had come in here. And I think I potentially hit the Lafley or something. I think I hit one thing over there as well. Anywho. So I was pushing my Stuart like 9 inches, 9 inches, 9 inches. And then at that point, I was finally beyond the graves here, pointing straight at it. I got the first order dice and I just assaulted, ran straight over his howitzer. And he was like, right, so I test to get out of the way. And no, you're an artillery piece. Artillery pieces die when they are charged by tanks. They're run down. So he didn't know that. That sucked, of course, but there you go. Now his reserves had come in here, which, as I said, I was very happy about, because that meant he was going to duel my LVT. I had a lieutenant in the LVT. I had the Polston gun going on ambush, shooting straight at him when he came in. And we just exchanged shots for 3 turns, me and his tank. I pinned him, he pinned me. I killed the Lafley at one point. His lieutenant gets out. I can't remember if I ended up killing the lieutenant, but I did try. And he doesn't kill me. Like, he pins me a couple of times, but he only had a howitzer to kill me with. So it wasn't really, like, it was a good trade-off for me. Having 3 of his units just sit there, basically dueling with an inexperienced lieutenant and a LVT, while the rest of my army killed his. So I stuck to the plan, and as soon as I could see I was winning massively, I pushed it a little further because I wanted to get more kill points, just to push myself up into the very top. So what decided the game? I had the right list to kill hordes. So my list building, that certainly helped. I made very, very specific kills, right? There was a lot of times where 2 or 3 of his units were available to me, and one of them was like, that would be very game decisive if I kill that one, but it's not sure. I'm going to have to fight simultaneous, so I kill your sniper instead, right? I charge your sniper. So I made a lot of those decisions where I was like, I'm charging that unit, not that one. And Up and Adam really helped with that, because I could choose which units to charge, right? So that really was key as well, because it meant that I didn't lose that many close combats. I lost 1 close combat, so the rest of them all went my way. My multi-rocket launcher kills the howitzer, that was also key, but as I've already said, he had basically made sure that we were equal on artillery, because he had blocked his own howitzers. And my Stuart then runs down his howitzer, his final howitzer. Absolutely devastating to him. There was very little he could do after that point. Miguel, I think he made one mistake, and that was, and maybe he had to because he had a lot of order dice, he clumped up. He clumped his units up really quite a lot. And that, in combination with getting in the way of his own howitzers, meant that my multi-launcher was massively more impactful than it could have been. I also think it was a mistake that he reserved his howitzer tank. There was no real reason to do so, because there wasn't any preparatory bombardment, so he could have just placed it on the table and started shooting, right? That would have given him one more source of HE to kill my Gurkhas on the way in. And I think the most brilliant thing and the best thing for him was his inexperienced unit, like winning a melee against Gurkhas when I finally charged in. He was very happy about that. I will definitely give him that win. That was good for him. Right. So at this point, I had 2 wins, both of them with massive points differences, with massive kill point differences, because I had both the secondaries as well. So I knew I was definitely in like the top 4 people at the tournament at that point. I was way ahead. I felt good about that, but that meant that I potentially could be going in to face some very hard opponents now. But you know what? An 80-man tournament, getting one of those top players, becomes really hard. And basically, in my estimation, there was only like 2 top players before the final that actually got to play another top player. So, and they played each other, right? And that was Carlos and Russell, and they basically they drew, so they knocked each other down at that point, which was in game 3. Until that point, most of us really didn't run into any of the top players, like a lot of Spanish top players, of course, and they were good, don't get me wrong, but I think that there was still a level of difference between the international top players and the Spanish, like, first league players. So I was feeling confident going into game 3. See you in a couple of days, and I will tell you how it went. Cheers.